No, it don't.
Yes, it does. And I haven't quiet you down.
Welcome to the live stream, you guys. Welcome to Well Said with Kim and Vic. I am Kim.
And I am Vic.
And we appreciate you joining us here on Seeking Educational Excellence YouTube channel. And as you saw from our title, we are going to be talking about parent involvement. And considering what we talked about last week with school choice,
absolutely,
we thought this was an appropriate follow-up to that because that's what it's really all about. When we're talking about parent involvement, we're specifically talking about in regards to being involved with the school.
And just remember, here at Seeking Educational Excellence, our job is to inform you of the things that's coming down the pike through the school system and how the government is getting involved with that and how your response is supposed to be as your children start to leave out of high school into college, being prepared, being equipped, and knowing and basically knowing what you believe and what you stand for, because we're facing tumultuous times.
Yes, very much so. I feel like in my time when I was looking up, information about parent involvement, being a former parent myself and being involved with my children, what I was looking for wasn't what I found. So it's very interesting, and we'll get into that. And this was just like cursory research. It's such a big rabbit hole you can go down, but just, looking through a lot of the resources that are available online, Google, you can search stuff, Google, look stuff up. I found that there's a slight difference between parent involvement and parent engagement. And we'll talk about that as well. I'm like, what's the difference?
And you know what the thing about it is that I would always tell my parents, are you engaged in your child's academic success? Because you being involved in it doesn't mean that you're engaged in it. And so we're going to be looking up the definition, right, Kim, of engagement. What does that mean? And if you want to let's get right into this, because, we only got an hour. Right. In addition, this is not going to be the only time we talk about parental involvement. This is going to be a 2-part series.
Yeah, because we found
this
so
week.
Much stuff.
There's so much stuff.
Yeah.
And like I said a few minutes ago, we are here to equip you as being the parent and giving you the resources that you need for your child as they enter into college, how to ward off the the bugs that may be coming, and also to be able to stand firm onto what you believe and what you've taught your children to believe morally, and the base of living through this society morally, righteously, and hopefully successfully. And we can only do that if we're equipped to do so. So we're going to get into this. Let's go, Kim.
So we're going to look at, we're going to answer, certain questions like who benefits from parental involvement and engagement.
Absolutely.
And from the conclusion I made, you'll be a little surprised about it. We know who should.
Yeah.
What exactly is parental engagement involvement? And I did find a couple of definitions to that. When it is applied and where is it facilitated the most? Because there's other ways parents can be involved, outside of school as well. But, mostly, of course, in the school. And why is parent involvement important? So we're going to look at those different issues, and hopefully we can give you guys enough to think about, especially if you're a parent. And and not to mention, this channel, Seeking Educational Excellence, that's one of our things that we're about is K through 12 education, parents being involved, getting back and involved truly to help kids with from K through 12 education that in the past that have been
excluded
or even indoctrinated.
Yeah.
If you look at now, we talk about the tumultuous times now, you see some people, they seem like they're, especially young people, seems like they know nothing about civics.
Yeah.
They know nothing about how the government works. They're very emotional. And these are, unfortunately, kids who have been through the public school system in most cases. And even with parental involvement engagement, they still turn out like this. So that's what's key. That's one of the things we found out in doing, our research. And like we said, we definitely want to revisit this next week because it's so much stuff. But why it's important for the obvious reasons that we would think is a little different than what's actually going on right now.
Yeah. And the thing about it is that I truly believe in we have been lulled to sleep. And every once in a while, periodically, the bell is rung and we wake up. But we want you to be able to respond critically because as we move forward these next few years, we're going to have a lot of things to deal with. And no matter where you stand on either side of the spectrum, you still have to deal with the civics issue, training and teaching your children correct history. And I just invested, Kim, those little books that you saw in my living room here. I bought a set of encyclopedias from 1912.
Gosh, I used to love. My mother had the Britannicas. I used to love those things.
Well, I just purchased a set and from 1912. That's the edition of the 1912 edition. And like I said, I like to when you go back because I'm trying to get all of the history.
Some true actual history,
what they were writing at that time.
Okay.
And it had started early. The Britannica started in the early 1700s. That was the first editions of the Britannica. And at one time they did
2 editions of
and it was only just 2-3 books. It was
Britannica and wasn't there
Fig, Funk, something and something.
Well, of course, Britannica is the most well known.
But it was the most well known. But at the time, they didn't have the 12. They just had 3 books, 3 big books.
Gotcha.
And right now I'm looking at another set because I'm really interested in just getting all of that history, all of that rich history, so that I could have a better understanding of what was the reason why we've come to this pivotal point here. And how did we get here? And like I said, my thing is, how do we get unstuck?
Going back to basics. Look, that's just to me the bottom line is that parent involvement is just a small piece of this puzzle with what we're seeing going on in our republic right now. Is that this republic is set up for everyone, and that those who have been busy and about their business and wanting to make changes, a lot of us have been lulled to sleep. And I think that kind of correlates with the whole parent engagement piece that we're talking about. And I give you a definition right quick of what I found. This is actually from the CDC. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Which is a government
entity.
Yes.
Okay.
So parent engagement in schools. Parent engagement in schools is defined as parents and school staff working together to support and improve the learning, development, and health of children and adolescents. Parent engagement in schools is a shared responsibility in which schools and other community agencies and organizations are committed to reaching out to engage parents in meaningful ways. And parents are committed to actively supporting their children's and adolescents' learning and developments. The relationship between schools and parents cuts across and reinforces children's health and learning in multiple settings: at home, in school, in and out of school programs, and in the community. So that's the engagement piece. And what I saw with the involvement is like the beginning of engagement. It kind of leads to it. Involvement can be just something as little as volunteering, showing up to the school, saying hi to the teacher.
Or just we were talking about when my daughter was in school, I was the class parent. I wasn't the class parent not for 1 year. I was the class parent for like 5 years straight. And
do we see that now?
No. And matter of fact, it's not even initiated for parents to be parents.
But that was in private school, right?
That was in private school. But however, at one time, my mom, when I was in elementary school, when I was going to school, she was the class mom, and she went on all the trips. So okay, so this is just not private school, public school. No, you can. It's just engaging with your child, engaging inside the environment of the classroom to say to the teacher, hint, hint, wink, wink, I see what you're doing.
Well, I think the ultimate point that I was trying to make in regards to making a comparison between private and public school, or even better equipped schools, is that you'll tend to see more parent engagement and involvement in the private schools, in the suburban schools that have a little bit more money. In the lower income neighborhood schools, you won't see that. And I know that's true because from my own perspective, when we moved from the inner city into the suburb to go, and it was open house one night, right? And I was always a parent that was engaged. I would show up that's how my mother was. That's how I was raised. When we were in the inner cities, I would be one of the few parents that would show up. The teachers knew me, the principals knew me and everything, because I was just that parent. They knew who I was. And I was always the ones volunteering, going on the trips and stuff. But I never saw any other parents. But when we went to the suburbs, the first day that I went to open house, the parking lot was full. I caught myself getting there 15 minutes early. All the other parents are already there.
But the thing about it is from the inner city to the suburbs, is that something that we can say they work and other ones? No. It's just
it's something we can say. What
you can't say that. What I'm just saying that in the comparison, because you had more parents participating in the suburbs than you did in the inner city. And it's not because the people in the inner city all are working. It's the fact of
why? I'm ready to hear this one.
It's because they have not been taught to parent.
Yes. Okay. That's an excellent point, sis. Well said, sis. I agree.
Because when you learn that a lot of these parents in the suburbs are coming from a dual parent family, so they're coming from a dual family, right? And then their parents. They both had the mother and the father of the child also had come from a dual parent home. So this is something that's seen, and having both parents in the house
makes a
difference. So I just wanted to just grab that.
Well, that's an excellent point. I mean, it gave a reason why. Like you said, going from the inner city to the suburbs. And that's true. I remember, and I was a little bit older mom too. My girls were in elementary school and I was in my 30s, and most moms then were in their 20s. So I was a little more mature, but a lot of them were single moms. A lot of them were, on fixed incomes. And probably came from single mom homes or single parent homes and stuff. And for me, even though my mother was always married, but my dad didn't raise me. So she always had a husband, but she was the main disciplinarian and stuff, my stepdad and stuff. But she was that mother who was involved. So I did. And so go back to your point that I learned from her. She taught me how to be that involved and that engaged parent. And if the young women or the young parents in the inner city, they're not getting that.
But your mother saw it. Your mother was able to see it for you is because her mother came from a dual fammy.
Yeah, my granddad. So she had her mom and her dad.
So she already knew what it was supposed to look like. But when you don't have that example, like history, if you don't learn, you're doomed to repeat it again. You're getting a lot of that. But this is not our topic. Girl, go ahead, because Victoria will go in.
That's okay. But I think it's still important to the discussion, because with the parent involvement period, nobody can really argue that parent involvement is bad for the children, right? common sense, common knowledge, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Would tell you that, yes, you want the parents involved in the with the schools.
Yeah.
But here's this is the caveat, because I did find different websites, and I'm looking at my iPad here. Some of the websites that I found and some of the articles that I found about parent involvement. And we even went as far, we'll talk about this too from a historical perspective, some of the laws like the No Child Left Behind Act, the Every Student Succeeds Act that replaced No Child Left Behind, and looking at some of the tenets and some of the things that they put in place. And the funny part is, and I may not have looked deep enough, and since you can tell me, so one of the things I didn't see a lot of was parent involvement piece. I saw more of testing, punishing schools if they didn't meet certain requirements and stuff like that. But one of the things I'm seeing in a lot of the literature that I'm reading, parent involvement is at a level after the curriculum has been created. I tried to look and see where there were articles that were encouraging the parents to get involved with putting the curriculum together. That is key, because my analysis of that is that they want parent involvement, but the parent involvement is to help them indoctrinate their children.
Yeah.
Like, well, whatever we know about Common Core, the No Child Left Behind Act, that focuses on testing and
that No Child Left Behind Act was basically for the inner cities, because they felt that those children were being left behind.
Yes.
Because now they're doing that. Now we have coming on the platform with everybody has to start with the same equal, and to have the same equal outcome, and everybody knows that that's not going to happen.
That was the other thing, is it focuses on equal outcome instead of equal opportunities.
Yeah, and so we have that, but we also brought up instruments that we used to see when we were children and we were growing up. Now the PTA, Parent Teachers Association, was a big part of that. The Parents Teachers Association was always geared towards in the evening, which later moved on to the afternoon.
Right. When a lot of parents are working.
And that's all a ruse to basically chop away at the parent involvement and more of the government indoctrination. Those who are making the curriculum, making the curriculum. And another question I want to pose to you guys, and I would love for you to answer it: should different cultures receive different curriculums? And then
you mean here in the United States?
Here in the United States.
Like, so if they're from a different culture or a different, if they immigrate here, should they receive?
Should they receive their continued culture, because you don't want to extract that, in addition to the American civics way.
Now let me ask you this, because you were in the classroom more than I
Excuse me, guys, I got a little tickle.
Are they, from what I've seen now, especially in some of this legislation, the newest one was enacted in 2015 under the Obama administration, the Every Student Succeeds Act, which replaced No Child Left Behind. I think they do have something culturally where they cater to new immigrants, teaching them in their culture and not teaching them to assimilate to American
and
culture.
See, and that I'm not for. I'm totally against that, because I believe that when you go to when I travel and across the waters to different countries,
they want you to assimilate.
They want you to assimilate, and even if you're there for a short period of time, you better bring a book
and learn the language,
or you better bring something that will
translate
what you want, because they're saying like this: if you desire to come here, we desire for you to know what you're coming to visit.
Right.
We want you to embrace the culture. So this craziness
and our history,
of not wanting people to learn the language. We got that ESL, English second language.
Yeah, yes. That was here in Charlotte when I was teaching. Yes.
It should be the first language,
right.
you know, that a child speaks when they come to a different country.
Yeah,
these are the preparations of engagement of parental guidance. You have to engage them in both if you learn in the different language.
When you're visiting a different country, they kind of slick though, so they're gonna cater to your child so you won't be involved. Like, I'm gonna leave it to the school. They're gonna teach my kid how to speak English. I don't have to be involved. But the thing about it is,
then we have the when you have PTA, not PTA. When you have the parent teachers conference, you have them looking for translators from Mandarin to Spanish to Dutch to anything to accommodate people that's coming from a different country to live here, to use our resources of all things, medically, for health. You have the schools, everything that you're catering to that. They're not learning to assimilate within the culture of America. What they're doing is still trying to keep the divide with the two cultures, you know?
Yeah. Well, that reminds me when I was in elementary school, which is a long time ago, but we ain't want to talk about that. But I remember being a little girl, and I remember this Italian immigrant. His name was Giuseppe. That came to, I think I was in 5th grade then. There was no special teachers in the class to help him with. Now, of course, my teacher was sensitive to him, right? Because, you know, he's new, he can't speak English yet. And so he was sensitive to that, but it was like baptism by fire. It's immediate immersion into the culture. And that's the quickest, actually, that's the quickest way to learn. You know, if we were to go over to Italy, or I see people who travel abroad a lot, and like you said, they may have their little translation book, but they're there for a while, and after a while, they're speaking the language because it's total immersion. It ain't nobody saying, well, look, we're going to bring you here first and let you speak English first. And quiet as it's kept, and we may be getting a little bit off subject, English is a worldwide language because it's backed by the dollar. You know, the dollar is the strongest currency. So it's been times where I've been in other countries and I didn't know the language, and I'll say I speak English, and they start speaking English. They already know. As a matter of fact, I have friends who came from Africa. When I used to live in Florida, I have friends from Nigeria. He told me that they learned that America is the land of milk and honey. They learn English in elementary school.
We're the only ones that, you know, see, this is going back to civics. It's going back to the focus on government, is also being able to go back to parents preparing their children for their moral fiber of what they believe, you know, spiritually, being what you believe historically. Okay, that's being prepared for that, and then knowing what you believe as who you are as an individual. So those are the 3 major areas in which parents have to really zero in on and start preparing their children for those 3 facets.
Yes, I did. And then I wanted to read this too, because I came across a study by, I think it's Springer Link. And it's an old study, but it's the issue about parental involvement is timeless. It doesn't matter whether it was 100 years ago or if it's today, it's still the same issue. So the study in the abstract, it said, was to seek a definition of the concept of parental involvement and to examine the relationship that may exist between school achievement and specific parental involvement activities. Data was collected from 852 parents of 6th grade students of both genders. It was found that the involvement of parents in their children's educational process is a complex behavior that may take different forms, not all of which are related to the child's school achievement. That's interesting. The following 6 types of parental involvement were identified through factor analysis: learning at home, volunteering and decision-making at school, and 4 different parenting tendencies. Emphasis on achievement, pressure, control, and personality development. Parenting through emphasis on achievement and through personality development had a positive statistically significant correlation with actual school achievement, while parenting through pressure and a negative search correlation. A positive also found between parental volunteering at school and the child's actual school achievement. Learning at home and parenting through control had no significant correlation with achievement. The findings of the study suggest that the 6 distinct types of behavior that make up parental involvement have differential effects in relation to school achievement. That's interesting.
But also I had looked at, people say, well, then you guys are reading all this stuff and you're giving us all this stuff. Where do we start? How do we start? Okay, so how can parents impact their children's development? Social, psychocultural development, means child observed spousal interaction and how arguments are settled in your family, and physical development. You physically developing. How do you feel physically developed? By exercise. Teaching your children is good to exercise. It's teaching your children how to eat correctly, so that eating builds your body. Socially, how are you socially in your community? How socially do you give back? Do you give back to a church? Do you give back to a Boys and Girls Club or YMCA? Some type of homeless shelter, something. What you doing? What are you giving back? My parents, for me, we had to give back. I don't even think my parents knew about that. We just had to volunteer. That was part of our, not just our chores, us helping the community, babysitting for free, no money, free. For another family.
Serving others, in other words, yes.
Servitude, okay? And also, your kids will respond in their own platform when they look at their parents and they're saying, this is how my mom and dad fight. If you fight in front of your kids are going to go to school to fight. Right. If your kids have an argumentative way about themselves, they got it from you. Right. They learned that from you. And then what they do, they don't know how to resolve conflict.
Is that what Layla mean when she say she got it from me?
Because when you don't know how to resolve conflict, that will affect your child's life. Yeah. Look at the prison system. The prison system is full of those children who have never learned
conflict
how
resolution.
to exactly. And you know why they didn't learn? Because their parent didn't learn. Because they didn't come from a dual family, or they came from a family that's dysfunctional. You have drugs, alcohol, a lot of factors play into those things. But whatever you do, and I will tell people this, if that's what you sell your kids, that's what your kids gonna become.
Well, I think that speaks to what you're saying is the big picture of, this is what I used to always tell my kids. I'm your first teacher. Yeah. It ain't your teacher at that schoolhouse. Yeah. I am. That teacher is like an extension of me. Yeah. So, of course, so that speaks to the bigger picture, of course, of parent influence and input. Yeah. So the type of parent, so it goes even beyond parental involvement in the schools, which is kind of like what we're talking about. But it does begin, as we always say, in the home.
So how do parents influence a child now? A clear message. Parents need to communicate clearly do's and don'ts to their children. Being a good role model. Because see, like they say, I learned from watching you. That's absolutely true.
It is.
That your children learn from, sometimes my daughter says to me, I said, where did you get that from? You remember
that commercial? Wait a minute. Remember that commercial a long time ago? I remember this, where the father broke into the room of the adolescent. I can't remember if it was a girl or a boy. He's found marijuana, right? And he's yelling at him, where'd you get this from? Who did you learn this from? Why are you using this? And the kid is like, scared because the parent is gonna, and then the parent is on him so much, and the kid finally answered, I got it from you.
I learned from watching.
I got it from you.
Yeah. And then, you have to let your child understanding your child, understanding, like, if your child is brought up on something of some type of behavior problem, Don't be so quick to say that's not my child, unless you know your child. If you know your child, you can emphatically say a behavior is not my child. Like you said, nah, my child wouldn't go on the table, but they would climb up there on that fence. You know what I'm saying? You do know your child. And the influence of negative and positive parenting on your children. A parent's influence their children in countless ways. First of all, they create the life and mix the genes. Children inherit the traits of their parents. Then parents create the environment that their children is raised in and heavily influence intelligence and personalities by the way you interact with your children. I put that together because I needed to write something, because for me sometimes to understand it, I got to write it out for me to act it out, so that that what I'm saying, it's concrete, so I can always back it back up with what I did. And so when I put that about how parents can influence their children, can be done so many different ways. Mm-hmm. You can influence your children just by having a cook session. On so-and-so night, we make cookies. Mm-hmm. We make cookies every Thursday night. And every Thursday night, each week, you got to have something for them to bake. Because you see, you're teaching your children in so many different facets. You're teaching your children about being on time, having your materials to your ingredients to make it, right? Mm-hmm. There's so many lessons that you are teaching that child.
Right.
Okay, that you don't even, sometimes people don't even realize that 7:00 once a week on a Thursday night, you're teaching them about time, you're teaching them about days, and you're teaching them also about consistency,
commitment, discipline, all of that. Right.
This is, and people don't realize that these things are not taught in classrooms. They're taught in your home.
Well, then, and I think to tie that together, mm-hmm. you know, like we said, it starts in the home. Uh-huh. So that piece of parenting does need to extend into the school, because that was another thing that when doing my research is that the parent is the one who gives the teacher the information about the child. So it makes it easier for the teacher to understand the child, the dynamics and stuff.
And the learning style.
Right.
And that's what makes it easier. And this is the reason why it's so important for parents to be involved in the classroom, because if you know the learning style of your child, the teacher has learned every learning style just about there is. Okay.
Right.
They have heard every type of learning style.
The good teachers.
Yeah, the ones that really like
and
what they're
most
doing.
Of them are. I'm not trying to throw shade at teachers.
You know,
but it's hard when you get those teacher unions that get so.
That's a whole different other subject.
Yeah,
we already talked about that.
Yeah,
you know,
maybe we can do a deep dive into that one.
That's a government issue. That is not even. Yeah, that's going into that. But I'm just saying.
Let me read this right quick too on our own website, on Seeking Educational Excellence website. What we talk about is parents wanting to take back their power in the schools, right? Mm-hmm. So in our parent section, we write, across the country, parents feel like the right to raise their children is being taken away from them. Case in point, in New York, now these kids who are underage can decide to take the vaccine without parental.
That was DC.
Was it DC? DC. Also, they were allowing children to make decisions about abortions. You know, 15-year-old girls can decide to get an abortion without parental consent. So
it's like gender, the same thing. They said that a child for gender assignment now in certain states, if a child comes in and said that they feel like a boy today.
That's actually in our statement. Go ahead. So education and raising your family in the values that you want should be a basic right. But increasingly, parents are told to sit down and let the experts guide their kids into adulthood. And that's the thing we're talking about, the whole parental engagement involvement piece, that they give us a lot of lip service, but they're actually showing us something different. Transgender classes as young as kindergarten. Mm-hmm. The portrayal of monsters like Che Guevara as heroes and the founding fathers as races are just a few of the horrors being done. C has a mission to get the schools back in the hands of parents instead of people that think like you, instead of people think what you should have, that you should have no say.
And the thing about it is we want to teach parents how to have a backbone again, and not being afraid of the bullies, because these are bullies. These people in the system are bullies. These are union people, some of these principals, some of these, even the teachers are bullies. They're there to bully you away from interacting with the curriculum, interacting with the school to bring about a change. And let's face it, people. When something is comforting to your mission, why you want to change?
Right, exactly. And the other thing that I think about too, especially like I said, when I was looking at this, the thing that was really missing in all the lip service to parental involvement, engagement, which who wouldn't want it, right? We always, it's just that a certain element in our culture is good at lip service and talking a good game. But then when you look at the results, you notice that that's all it is lip service. What I'm wondering is, how do we find that piece in the curriculum that where the parents can get involved at that level? I mean, parents maybe need to show up to school board meetings, elections, and have some, and they can in numbers. There's, strength in numbers. If enough parents come out, I really believe that they can force, or at least have input into what the curriculum is. Because I bet you nowadays the 3 R's are not the main part of the curriculum.
Reading, right?
No, like you said, they're telling little boys you can be a little girl, and African studies and ESL, English as a second language, that kind of stuff.
So I didn't catch it. But I'm sorry, because I don't catch it all the time,
Yeah.
But
that's my job, not to catch it. You smart.
No. But the thing about it is like I was saying to you when we were talking about
sorry about that.
About the gender thing. This is another part of equipping parents before their child even get into school about gender, your gender, how you were created, why you was fashioned and created in your mother's womb. That's something that was done prior to them even having any hands in it.
Right.
And so therefore, we want to.
It was encoded in their DNA.
Yeah. And so this making even I look at it because a friend of mine the other day I was talking to him maybe a couple of weeks ago, and they're Christian, and I went over to their home and I was talking with them, and I said something, and she goes, "Oh no. They call them I forgot what the name she had for that particular individual."
Okay.
And I just looked at her mom, and I'm just like, wow, how you were so easily assimilated.
I was going to say too, though,
with that,
it seems like the parents are an extension of the education that's been going on in the public school system, because they accept this stuff.
Yes.
They may be involved, but they've been conditioned to accept whatever the agenda is that's being pushed.
Because parents are afraid to push back, because either they don't want to feel like they don't want their child to become ostracized.
Right.
Because what happens is now the leftists, they start to penalize our children, and this is the very reason why the being active in your child's schooling is very important.
Right.
And being able to have a dialogue with your child daily about what happened in school. Okay, was there anything different in school? And then becoming involved with other parents that's in your child's class.
Right.
So that you can build a community of parents. Let me tell you something. You build a community of parents.
That's it.
Honey, them teachers be scared of you.
That's it.
They may go like this behind your back, but let me tell you something. As a former teacher, they don't want people like you doing that, because that empowers you. That empowers the parents.
But you got to think about in today's climate, because I think about even when I was a young parent, I was working, my husband was working. We both were workers. I still was that parent that was involved, but to organize other parents was challenging for me. And I even think about a story where I think I told you this. My son was in middle school. Now they do this stuff right in your face. Now my son's in his 30s, he's like 34, 35, something like that. So, but he was in middle school, so he's about 12 years old then. And if you guys don't know, Planned Parenthood is all in the schools, okay? And I remember,
even if you think they're not,
they are there.
They are.
But at this particular time, this had to be the late 80s. No, this was the 90s. This was late 90s. I got a letter from the school saying that Planned Parenthood would be there teaching the kids sex education. And one of the things they would be, it told me that they would be putting condoms on bananas, and it gave me the option to opt out. And I'll say, oh, hell no, he will not be learning at 12 years old how to put a condom on bananas. That's up to me and his father to teach him. But I feel like, because this was an inner city school, we still were living in the inner city. I was probably more the exception as the parent than the rule. I can imagine a lot of parents didn't read it. Or even if they did, they were okay with it. Because they've been okay. They've been okay with, we've been sold a bill of goods that Planned Parenthood is a good organization and it's responsible largely for Black genocide. So, but when I see, and I didn't even think about it like that then, honestly, but I felt like it was not the school's job to teach my son that. He had a father and a mother who will teach him those values.
But you see, that's the thing about the whole thing. This is the reason why I'm encouraging parents here to start getting involved with your child's school. If you don't want to be active inside, be active outside. Having group meetups with parents that's in that classroom. Each year, make a meetup group for that class, because that is going to empower you. That's going to keep a lot of the things being proposed to your children, because they know they're coming to face a tight-knit community. Yeah. And this will start to catch fire in your school. You won't be the only one that's doing it. There will be other grades. It may take a year for people to catch on, but when you start doing community grade groups, what happens is that you start being able to have someone pick up your child if you can't make it there. It's like you team up with people. You become powerful. Could you pick up my child? Could you drop off my child? I can't make it there on time. Blah, blah, blah. And then you can find out all the 411 that went on in school and what teacher got fired or brought up on charges on something. But it keeps you in the loop.
And just understand, though, see, this is one of the points I think we really got to drive home, Vic, with what she's saying. I absolutely agree. You have to get involved. But a lot of this stuff that we're talking about when it comes to what's being taught in the schools is entrenched. And that stuff is not going to go away in a year, 2 years, 3 years. But you have to get involved now to try to affect change, down the road. And then making sure you're involved in those. And I understand, like Vic was saying, is that if you're that one parent or two or three that say like, this ain't right, you'll get a huge backlash because everybody else is on that train. But just think about your child or what's most important, and be willing to take the heat for your child. Now, moving forward just a little bit, we want to get a little bit of the historical perspective. We were talking about the different legislation that has come. And specifically the ESSA. Now, I'm on the U.S. Department of Education's website, ed.gov. And they did an update on the Every Student Succeeds Act. This act actually replaced No Child Left Behind. And President Obama signed it into law on December 10th, 2015. It actually included a lot of the portions of No Child Left Behind. It says that here, let's just give you a few tenets of the law. ESSA includes provisions that will help to ensure success for students in schools below are just a few. The law advances equity by holding critical protections for America's disadvantaged and high-need students. Now, I think Vic will like that because she's used to dealing with, you know, special needs kids, right? Requires for the first time that all students in America be taught to high academic standards that will prepare to succeed in college and careers. That seems interesting. Ensures that vital information is provided to educators, families, students, and communities through annual statewide assessments. See, this is where I get stuck too with these assessments, and measure students' progress towards these high standards. That was one of the biggest problems with No Child Left Behind. Too much testing. And I remember this when my kids were in school. They had these proficiency tests, and the kids start, the teachers start teaching the kids for the test. Instead of actually teaching them reading, writing, arithmetic, they're teaching them how to pass a test. And I don't know about y'all. I mean, I'm pretty good at taking tests, but I get test anxiety. And I consider myself pretty intelligent, pretty smart, can pass a test. I can, but I still get anxiety. So even for somebody who is, you know, pretty proficient at taking tests, I get anxiety. So can you imagine children who are constantly being barrage with, you got to pass the test, you got to pass the test. I think that sets them up for failure.
But you know, and another thing I was hearing that kids were saying, I'm gonna get left back if I don't pass the test.
Yes.
So you already,
and they did that
psychologically.
Oh my gosh.
Psychologically, the child has already believed that they are going to fail. That it's like the stress of it, the pressure of it has already prepared your child to fail. It's
I just had a revelation, sis, and it's just, and I gotta tell y'all this is how crazy public education is now. I remember when my daughter was a senior in high school. So this was back in 2010. Ohio, back then, I was in Ohio. They had the state proficiency test, which I'm sure was probably part of the No Child Left Behind legislation, which in researching that, this was one of the biggest problems with it. A kid can have a 3.0, 4.0 GPA, but if they didn't pass that proficiency test, they could not graduate. Are you kidding me?
They had to go to summer school.
If they didn't pass a friggin' test, even though they had a high GPA, they could not graduate. How stupid. So that's the law superseding actual achievement. These kids were achieving. So this goes back to parental involvement. So you not only have to be involved on the local level, you got to pay attention to what's going on federally.
Yeah.
And you got to hold your representatives accountable for passing this garbage.
And the thing about it is another question we're going to be raising next time. Should the government be involved in schools? Should this just be taken up on a local level where the local representatives be involved in it, or should just state by state, whatever Department of Education is in that state, that should be. Too much government is a big problem. I say that. Less government, much better.
Well, I just found something else. I did see this too in the history of education in this country. There was another act that was passed in 1965 by President. It was signed by President Lyndon Johnson. It was called the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESEA, right? So President Johnson believed that full educational opportunity should be our first national goal, which I have no problem with opportunity. From its inception, ESEA was a civil rights law. ESEA offered new grants to districts serving low-income students, federal grants for textbook and library books, funding for special education centers, and scholarships for low-income college students. Additionally, the law provided federal grants to state educational agencies to improve the quality of elementary and secondary education. Now, who can have a problem with that?
If all the books are the same.
When you say, you mean like no special books? I mean, we don't know.
Meaning like academically, are the books academically on the same level for a second grader in this community, in that community?
Yeah.
are both books the same?
Oh, like whether it's in the poor community, because of course,
that was Lyndon Johnson,
and this focused in the poor community,
and that was Lyndon Johnson. I'm sorry, I said that twice.
Enough said. Enough said. I got you.
Yeah, and especially that a lot of this problem in NC is because of this act. I think in North Carolina, especially in Wake County, they have a terrible
school district problem.
Yes, reading and math is horrible.
Yeah.
And
as a matter of fact, even on our website, on the C website, we have a graph there that even with these acts, you got to think about it too. That's
all these acts
that were put into place, and it still showed that only 34% of 8th graders could read at level.
Yeah.
So with all of this stuff going on with the ESEA, No Child Left Behind, ESSA, all of this stuff, our kids are still failing. So I think that goes back to even a broader point that we're trying to make, that parents are very, I ain't gonna ask. I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole, okay? So parents do need to be involved. And then we talked about at the school level, but I think it's way more than that. So we're just calling parents to be parents, right?
Yeah.
So if you decide to have children, it's a huge responsibility because it's your job to raise them to be productive citizens of society, right? So not only does it start at home, it's in the school, and you have to be active some kind of way civically. Like, you got to know what's going on with the school board. You got to know these laws that are being passed that are supposed to help your children, because as we're looking at this now with this federal and I agree with Big, we're going to definitely get into this. Should the federal government be involved in education?
Or should it be on the local level?
Education is local. It really is, because everybody's educational needs rural educational needs are going to be different from suburban or urban educational needs. So it makes a really big difference.
Yes.
How this is the government. Well, I just feel like, well, you know how we think about the government. More government is bad.
Bad, yeah. And in education, it's the worst, because you're dealing with people who've been in office for 35 years. They're just so detached.
I was reading an article today that Diane Feinstein, at 87 years old today, in 2024, wants to run for office again. So that means she'll be what, 91, running for office? Okay, that's crazy. Okay, but anyway,
we're gonna get back.
That's part of the problem. There's too many people in office for too long. Yeah. You only can keep the president for 8 years at most, but all these other folks are still in Congress. That's crazy.
But okay, well,
right. Well, that's a whole other subject for another day.
Another day. Yes.
But I wanted historically as well. The Department of Education has only been. It was either. I can't remember. It was either Carter or Nixon that created it. I think it was Jimmy Carter. Y'all can check and see. But what did we do before we had a federal Department of Education? Our kids were getting educated. If I think about it, there was no Department of Education when I was
Board
in school.
Of Education. It was on
a local board. Exactly.
A local board that made, and it was given over to the federal government took over it.
Right.
And I think by the federal government taking over it, there's too many schools, not enough oversight, and too many mistakes. And the mistakes that's being made is on your kids. People better wake up.
So I think with everything we talked about, we can absolutely agree that parental involvement and engagement is very important, but even more so, you have to be purposeful with your engagement and your involvement. You can't just show up and say, okay, what do you want me to do? I'll do whatever you want me to do. You have to scrutinize and critically think about what's going on with your child. And of course, at C, that's what we all about, critical thinking.
Bringing it to your head.
Straight to the head. Well said, sis. And in doing my research, like I said, and I think we'll probably get into this even more in part 2, is where is the parent involvement with the curriculum that's being developed? See, at C, that's what we're trying to do. Yeah. We want to develop the curriculum that will help children be critical thinkers in grades K through 12. That's where our focus is, grade K through 12. Working with the students, with the teachers, parents, exactly. Because that's the whole that's the equation, right?
Yep.
Parent, teacher, and student.
Yep.
And at SEA, that's what we're all about. Critical thinking. So when it comes to parent involvement and engagement, absolutely, it is good.
Yes.
With a caveat that you are absolutely engaged with what's going on and having input and looking at this stuff critically and making sure that the teacher is an actual partner in achieving what you and your child want, not what the school wants. So that was the piece to me that was really big. And on a psychological standpoint, you got any comments about that, sis? About parent involvement?
Psychologically, teaching your child who they are as an individual builds them psychologically, gives them their confidence.
Yes.
Like we said in one of our YouTube things that we had one time, we were talking about our culture, the Black culture, and skin complexion, and how that affected a lot of people within the Black community. It's just like
we call it colorism
in our own community. And like I said, my dad had this very, very strong influence over my life, and he taught me that I was the best thing since sliced bread. And the confidence he put in me, because he had his confidence, he was an alpha male. Oh yeah, he was able to instill that in me. So when you instill those strong, dominant traits in your kids, when they get out there, I used to tell my daughter there was nobody as beautiful as she was. Yeah. And let me tell you something, she was in that awkward stage. You go through that awkward stage. But I always, and even up to this day, she says, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. But it's a mind thing. The kids are hearing you. And in their ear is going up to their medulla. And inside their head, there's something that's capturing that voice of their mother, of their father, of reassuring you that you are beautiful, that you are wonderful. There's no one as smart as you. Now, yes, there are people smart as them, but you know what you do? You set them for going in the classroom, say, I'm going to knock this right out the box, and ain't nobody going to stop me. Right. That's what you want to build in all your children. So that's my take on it.
And then from what I think psychologically, I think even for me, when I was growing up, because my mother was so involved in his life, I knew, she would come up to the school. I used to love to see my mom at the school. Because look, I was a good kid. I wasn't doing nothing wrong. Now, that's a whole nother story for my child. She used to hate to see me coming because I usually catch her doing something wrong. I remember I threatened her with becoming a substitute teacher at her school. Oh my gosh, she had a fit. But I think that even though she, makes fun of that, I think she had an appreciation that she knew she had a mother who was involved, who loved her, who was checking on her.
Yeah.
So
that wanted to be involved with her.
Exactly. Who cared? If nothing else, she knew I cared.
Exactly.
And I think psychologically, that's excellent for children. Children need to know.
Yeah.
One of the worst things you can do, and I don't care if you work a 9 to 5, you figure it out.
You figure it out.
Your kid didn't ask to come here.
Yeah.
So as parents, and that was my thing. Unfortunately, I was divorced when my daughters were just about to go into middle school. So that just made me step it up even more. And to my ex-husband's credit, he stayed involved with the kids. So, but I feel like psychologically, the ones who matter the most are the children. Yeah. Because it's their psychological development that we're looking to preserve and to cultivate.
Because if you don't, your grandchildren gonna be jacked up. You better tell the truth, girl. So y'all listen to me, okay?
That's what's wrong with my grandchildren.
You don't step in. If you don't step in and take that bull by the horn and put that thing down on the ground and step up. Because if you don't, sweetie,
your grandkids
gonna be jacked up.
Well said, sis.
That's the bottom line.
That's real talk.
That's the bottom line.
That is real, because this stuff can be generational.
Okay.
And that's just she's absolutely right.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it for y'all because we've been doing that too long. I just want to bring it straight to your head.
Straight to the head.
I want you to cognitively think about what I'm saying and then critically
think. Exactly. That's all we asking. That's all we're asking.
That's it.
You know, so as we wind down, we got about a little bit over a minute for this live. Anybody who joined us liked it. We appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
You know, if you're looking at it later, please leave a comment. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, we're trying to get up our numbers, guys.
Right, we are definitely going to be doing these lives at least once a week.
Yeah.
And at some point in the future, you know, doing, you know, maybe longer ones or more frequent ones.
Yes.
That's down the road. We're actually exploring looking at another social media platform too, as well. So we'll be broadcasting across, you know, multiple platforms and stuff.
Yes.
We'll definitely let you know when that time comes where, you know, we'll be broadcasting. But please like, share, and subscribe.
And also, we would like to thank Kevin.
KJ.
We would like to thank you, Kevin, for the opportunity of being on your platform seeking educational excellence. And if you guys tune in one time or another, you may just see him on the show. We'll just bring him on live.
And let you ask him some questions or hear directly from him. Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, you guys have a great weekend, and we will be back next Friday at 12 o'clock.
And thank you for checking out Well Said with Kim and Vic.
Bye.
Ciao.